A billiard company in 1863 offered $10,000 to anyone who could replace elephant ivory, and that prize, never formally claimed, quietly started the material world you're sitting in right now. Elephants were being killed by the tens of thousands every year. Not for meat, not for territory, but for their teeth. Something had to give. Billiard balls in the 1860s were considered precision instruments, and only one material on Earth had the right combination of density, hardness, and elasticity: elephant tusk. Demand was relentless, supply was visibly collapsing, and Phelan and Collender, one of the largest billiard manufacturers in America, posted that $10,000 prize not out of ecological concern, but out of raw desperation. They couldn't source the raw material anymore. Working mostly alone in Albany, New York, John Wesley Hyatt spent several years trying dozens of compounds before landing on a mixture of plant cellulose, derived from cotton pulp, bound together with camphor. He called it celluloid. Hyatt was a printer by trade, not a chemist, and the prize money was what drove him, not any particular interest in the chemistry of elephant substitutes. Moldable, cuttable, cheap enough that manufacturers didn't need to wait for a tusker to die. It spread fast. Billiard balls, photographic film, the first commercial movie reels. All of it ran on celluloid within 2 decades. One problem: celluloid was intensely flammable, and some early billiard balls made with it didn't just crack on a hard shot. They produced a small flash and a sharp report, like a firecracker, loud enough that saloon patrons reportedly reached for their guns. Hyatt found this funny. He'd mostly saved the elephants, in one corner of the trade, and accidentally made pool halls sound like gunfights. Celluloid was still made from nature, cotton pulp, tree derivatives, things that had existed for millions of years before Hyatt touched them. What hadn't happened yet was the truly alien part. In 1907, a Belgian-American chemist named Leo Baekeland was working in a private laboratory he'd built behind his house in Yonkers, New York. Synthetic shellac was his goal, a replacement for varnish that was, at the time, literally made from the secretions of lac insects scraped off tree branches in South Asia. Phenol mixed with formaldehyde, cooked under heat and pressure in a sealed vessel Bakeland called his Bakelizer, produced something nobody expected. That substance didn't dissolve, didn't melt either. Dark, hard, and permanent, it refused to behave like anything the natural world had produced in 4.5 billion years. Bakeland named it Bakelite, filed his patent in 1907, and announced it publicly 2 years later. Bakelite became known as the material of 1,000 uses. Telephones, electrical insulators, radio casings, the first mass-market cameras that ordinary families could actually afford. All Bakelite. What made it genuinely strange wasn't the usefulness. Every rock, every mineral, every ocean compound was something the planet had assembled through pressure, heat, and geological time. Bakelite was the first material that wasn't. For the first time in 4.5 billion years, Earth contained a substance it didn't make. Both celluloid and Bakelite worked because of something chemists in the 1920s were still arguing about: the polymer. Hermann Staudinger, a German chemist who spent most of that decade being told he was wrong by his own colleagues, insisted that certain molecules formed enormous chains, thousands of atoms long, linked in repeating patterns that gave materials properties no small molecule could achieve on its own. Wrong, said the establishment. Staudinger won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1953. Once that architecture was understood, synthetic chains could be designed on purpose. Nylon arrived in 1935, developed at DuPont, strong, light, and endlessly moldable, and the military recognized it immediately. During the Second World War, nylon went almost entirely to parachutes. Plexiglass replaced glass in aircraft canopies because it would crack under impact instead of shattering into a pilot's face, and synthetic rubber kept tank divisions moving when natural rubber supply chains collapsed entirely. By 1945, the factories that had been stamping out polymer components for the military had the capacity and the technical knowledge to make plastic essentially free. Tupperware launched in 1948. Disposable razors, plastic packaging, polyethylene bags. All of it flooded American kitchens within a decade, and nobody questioned it, because the stuff cost less than the labor required to wash what it was replacing. Here is where the numbers stop being abstract. Since 1950, humans have manufactured 8.3 billion metric tons of plastic. Not 8.3 billion objects. 8.3 billion tons of the material itself. More mass than every living animal on the planet combined, including everything in the ocean. Published in Science Advances in 2017, Roland Guyer's study calculated that of all the plastic ever produced, only 9% has ever been recycled. 9%. 79% is sitting in landfills or loose in the natural environment right now, and it will still be there in recognizable form when your great-great-grandchildren are old. A standard plastic water bottle takes around 450 years to break down, and even then it doesn't disappear. It fragments into particles so small they've been found in Arctic ice cores, in deep ocean trenches, and in human blood. Microplastics have been found in the bodies of Antarctic penguins, Animals that have never touched a plastic bag, living on a continent that has never had a factory. Spare the elephants from ivory, and they end up swimming in the material that replaced it. John Wesley Hyatt never collected the $10,000. No prize was ever formally awarded to anyone. Narrow sense, he succeeded. The billiard halls stopped demanding ivory, the killing slowed in that corner of the trade. But 8.3 billion metric tons later, the material he put into the world has outlasted every elephant he was trying to protect. Tonight, when you throw away a plastic bottle, it starts a 450-year journey that will outlast every living thing you've ever met. Nothing gone, just smaller, invisible, still here.